welcome to the 7th tutorial of the series, which by the way is going to be one of the last ones that we do for particularly this project. This time around I'll show you how I would approach a cartoonish render style in Vray for Rhino. Said that, Vray for Rhino is not the best for this. I am going to cut quite a few corners to make it work. It's because Vray for Rhino is basically like a small brother to Vray for 3ds Max. What I mean by that is that there are quite a few things that have been cut while porting Vray into Rhino, right? So things such as light mode for gradient color maps, which is literally the key thing that makes a cell shaded render. What it does is it basically, instead of having these kind of a very smooth color gradients, let's say you have a yellow light source and blue shadow, and then the yellow is going to bleed into the blue, and you'll get these kind of soft shadows and soft transitions. It will just create a really sharp ramp. Well, you would be able to create a really sharp step between what's yellow and what's blue, and that makes it cell shaded, of course. In case of Vray for Rhino, it doesn't have that, so we'll need to, as I mentioned before, cut quite a few corners. I guess all that I'm saying is, if you have Vray for 3ds Max, use that and save yourself the pain, right? By the way, next video is going to be me doing the cell shaded toon style render the proper way in 3ds Max's Arnold render engine, which is, I guess, the proper way on how to do it. So I'll show you that. Oh yeah, and here on the screen, what you see is me just trying to figure out the composition for my renders, right? In this case, I decided that I'll do 2 or 3 renders instead of 1, and I'll try to kind of draw like a storyboard for it. And I guess everyone has a different approach. Me personally, when I do this kind of stuff, it's usually when I need to do very conceptual artwork, right? So if I'm doing just a regular interior or exterior render for a commercial project, then usually it's much more linear, much more straightforward. So I already know what kind of compositions I'll be using. In this case, I don't. So I prefer to draw rather than model out the boxes and see the composition that way. So you can see here I'm drawing the 3rd image. It's basically going to be a close-up of the structure, and I'm just doing a quick doodle. I never spend more than like 5 minutes on each of the drawings, right? I just want to pump this out as fast as possible, just to get all of the what's light, what's dark, what's heavy, what's light again. Where are the figures, what's the focus point, is it a a central composition, is it a 1/3 of a composition, and so on. So all of these things, and once I have them done, then I can just simply start moving into Rhino and starting to develop the block out for my shapes. In this case, I'm using characters. I thought that maybe that will help dictate the scale better for the renders, because those towers that we do, remember, the voxels are 10 by 10 by 10 meters, which means that the people would be really small next to our buildings. And in this case, I'm just doing some sort of a floating Evolo style skyscraper competition compositions, like where towers are not really touching the ground, they're just floating slightly above the ground. Oh yeah, and this program right here is very useful, at least for me. It's called DAZ 3D Studio, and this is where it's a free one, so you can just download it and use it. And this is where you can get different figures, right? And you can pose your figures. So I always, when I need some sort of a figure in my scene, I will always use DAZ 3D to just figure out a pose. There is a library for poses, such as this, as you can see here. But usually you do need to tweak it a little bit to make it work nicely. And I think the last one was a bit tricky because I wanted the person for the third image, which is kind of not sitting down, yeah, a pose similar to that, right? So I needed to tweak it quite a bit to make it work, and you can see, you know, the potential of this program. It's really nice. It's a bit clunky though, at least for me. Like using it is a bit clunky, and also the way they make money is they are selling different poses, and there are different types of figures for different poses. It's a whole like big money making machine, except that the program itself is free, which is nice. Anyway, I'm just trying to do some sort of a floaty pose for this guy. Just looking into collisions, trying to make it not collide. Yeah, something like this. Exporting it. It exports as OBJ, right? So you can just import them into Rhino, no problem. I will have the file, these files, or rather the Rhino file, uploaded in the video description. So if you want to have these figures, just download the file from the video description. So I decided that this pose needed some sort of a more drama. So the guy is kind of pointing towards something. Now there's a little bit of cleaning up, like that. It's just mesh normals. And here I imported my helmet that I made, which is it's a not a nice one, but basically I decided that all of these figures they should have some sort of a helmet on their head, just to make them more uniform. And yeah, now let's get into actual rendering. Okay, let me grab my coffee. Good stuff. So we have this model right here, and it's in centimeters, right? So the first thing that I want to do is I want to figure out how big these people are, right? So I'll just take the lady here, select her without the helmet, bounding box, distance from bottom to top, we have 178 centimeters. Okay, that's cool. That means that these guys are in kind of correct scale. So that's fine. Do I have them in? Yes, I have put them in separate layers. So I have them here. So now on to, for now I'll hide them. Now I'll just create some sort of a structure for us to work with. So first of all, our test points here that we used, we don't need those anymore. I'll just delete them, and I'll load up Grasshopper, and we will just be creating a new set of points. And for that we'll be using our Cellular Automata Tower. There is one more thing though, which is quite important as you're trying to render out a lot of elements. It's basically, let's just wait for this to load up. Come on, there we go. It's basically these elements right here. they need to be meshed, right? So all of these need to be meshes. If they are not meshes, right, if they are polysurfaces, then your computer is gonna crash quite fast with this. So for now, I'm going to generate some points, and that's again our Cellular Automata script that we've done. I don't need that whole part, I do need the points though, or actually, let's keep it. In doing so, I'll see what's going on. Right, so our voxels are 10 by 10 by 10 meters, right? Here they are 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters, but that's fine, we'll scale them up by 100 later. So 10 by 10 by 10. Which means that if our x and y amount is 5, that would make it 50 by 50 meters in footprint. I think that's fair. That's fair enough. Let me I'll just create a new layer real fast and just draw some sort of a starting condition in my new layer. Oh, this one, don't worry about this one, like that. And I'll just set multiple curves like this, and ta-da! Oh, that's a very boring, yeah, that's a very boring structure. Clear values. Let's try again. What if we have a T-shape like that? Set multiple curves. Oh, come on. Okay, let's mess around with the... Well, first of all, let me break the symmetry. I'll just take that the one of the T curves and just move it by one row to the side just to see. Yeah, that doesn't care. Just does that. Okay, so that's fine. I'll play around with the settings. So def is happening between 0 and 1, and then 6, 7, and 8 die. So let's try more defs. Reset. Okay, we need more. Let's try this. Oh god, no. Okay. So 2 and 4 is okay, and 2 and 4 here is not. Let's do 1 and 5. That is going to make it very dense. So that doesn't work, and it's repeating. By the way, the thing that I've noticed, the smaller the initial grid, so right now we have 5 by 5, the more it is going to start repeating itself, right? Just logical that it does that. So here I'll leave it at 1, and here I'll change it to 3. And here 3 as well. Let's just see what happens now. God damn it. Okay. What about 3 or 4? And then it dies from 1 and dies from 4. Something like that should be okay. That's fair enough. And what happens if we bring back the symmetry? Starts doing that. And let's just create an additional row of points here. Like that. As you can see, I'm not controlled in any way. I'm just testing it out with different variations. But this seems to be pretty cool. Still repetitive though, but maybe that's fine. Let's leave it like that. Okay, so that's 5 by 5, so that's 50 by 50 meters, and then in the height we have 20. That's going to be 200 meters. Let's do 30. Whoa, that sound though. Sorry about that. Let's do actually 6 by 6, just to see if it breaks. Yeah, it breaks. Crap. Okay, that's fine. We will fix it. There we go. And now this guy moves here. Nope. What about this guy moves here? Okay, I need to be more controlled over it, so let me hide this. Come on, hide. Let's see. Cross here. Delete that. Cross here. And let's say, let's say something that breaks symmetry right here and is actually just just a single point. Okay. Enable preview again. Hide this, hide that. Can this be transparent though? There we go, that's better. Set multiple. So basically you just play around with it until you find something that, come on, until you find something that works. What about now? Ah, there we go. Or did it break? Doesn't matter. Even if it broke, that's fine. We can just mirror the point cloud and it's gonna be okay. So we have that done. I will be extracting the point cloud now. Set, how many did we make? 30. Did it break at 30? Yes. I mean, no, it didn't. That's a no. Yeah, probably didn't grow the full height, doesn't matter. Okay, let's bake out these points. Bake Celery automata points, group yes please, okay. And we don't need this anymore, so I just close it. So for these curves, I'll just delete those off because we will not be using them. And we have our points with a single point right there. Yeah, that's why it broke, right? At this generation, it only made, I mean, it didn't break, it just, everything died. So in this generation, it just made 1 point. Okay, that's fine, that's easy to fix. We just ungroup. No, yes, ungroup. Delete that point. Group again. Bounding box. And then there's a trick, right? So bounding box and all of the point cloud are in the bounding box. And I'll just do mirror 3 points. And I'll just choose 3 points in the top of the bounding box so that it does a mirrored version for these, right? And I'll just move them up by 10 because then the duplicates are going to be, you know, kind of dispersed. And now if I delete and delete, I have a really tall tower, which is really nice. So now let's break our computers by wrapping it with the elements. So, which one should I use? I'll use this one. Okay. You know, familiar stuff, same definition that we've used in our every previous tutorial. So the first thing that I want to check is whether or not the geometry that I'm using is correct, right? So I will just hide the library. Okay, that's fine. Is that a mesh? Yes, that is a mesh. And what about, yeah, that's fine. Always double check. I mean, yes, it does take a minute, less than a minute, but just double check. Is it a mesh? Is it, you know, the correct, incorrect position and all of that? Because if it's not, you will have a really bad time later on. Okay, that's fine. Is it a mesh though? Yes, okay. That's fine, that's good. It's very good. Good. Good, okay. So all of these are meshes. That means we can start wrapping this around. 2 points. Can I actually... No, never mind. Set multiple points. I just select... Oh, no. Set multiple points like that. So I set all of them up and it just goes immediately. When it goes, it goes. Okay, I can hide the points here so that they are not displayed, and the mesh preview is going to be a bit... It's going to get a bit heavy. Maybe we should change this to wireframe view. Not sure if that actually helps or not. But here we do get a bunch of meshes. Okay, so as that is growing, let's leave it for a while. Let me make a time lapse and grab some more coffee. And what would look nice? Something like this, right? So let me frame it. So I'll of course speed up this process. While I'm doing that, I'll grab a coffee, and then we'll be back. Okay, so it's done. Took it a while, but I mean, compared to render times, this is nothing. So from what I see here, everything seems to be working as expected. No awkward gaps, no nothing. Okay, we're good to go. So the next step, once it built the tower for us, next step is to bake it out. And actually we could run, let's run this. Right, so before we bake it out, I have this cluster here, which will give us the analysis of how many different types of elements we use, and also give us a joined mesh here. So that might take a while. No, it actually didn't. It was really, really fast. So mesh join gives us a single mesh. How big is it? Ooh, that's that's 11 million vertices. Or am I wrong? No, that is 11 million vertices. So let's see if this is going to break. I'll just bake it out. Yikes. While we're waiting for it to bake out, you can see here that, you know, the statistics for how many different types of elements are used. And oh, it did it. And here I can see that type 14 wasn't used, type 12 and type 7. These three weren't used in this kind of structure. And yeah, the further you go down, the less probability there is that the elements are going to be used, especially in this kind of structure where it's quite repetitive. You know, I mirrored it and so on. So here the most amount of elements used is type 2 and type 4. Let's check them out. So type 2 is come on. Type 2 is, yeah, that single plate there, and type 4 is a corner. Yeah, fair enough, makes sense. Okay, so we have it baked out, and now we don't need anything from Grasshopper, so I'll just close this. And close Grasshopper as well. Let's go for shaded view. Oh, actually, let's just check it out in the Arctic view. Yeah, it looks cool. Looks really nice. So now it's time for us to set up the render. So back here, let me remove the marks. Back here we have render 1, which will have 3 of these towers. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do 3 towers with 1 tower being 11 million vertices. We'll see. I'm running a laptop, and for that matter an old laptop, so that might be a problem. But it's basically, okay, 3 towers. Let me hide all of the unnecessary layers. So we're just using figures, and layer 1, I'll just name it tower. Okay. So this guy here, oh my god, just selecting it is a pain in the ass. Come on, you can do it. I should have done a smaller version of it for the tutorial. So I need to scale it up, right? Because right now it's in centimeters, and I want it to be in meters. So instead of scaling up the tower, what I'm going to do is I'll just go to units here, and I'll change this to meters. So everything that was, you know, 10 by 10 centimeters will become 10 by 10 meters. Absolute tolerance, yeah, all of that is fine. I'll hit OK. It will ask me, would I like to scale? No, I wouldn't. So now everything is in meters, and where's my figures? Here, here, and here. There they are. These guys are pretty big, right? So these right now are like, this girl right here is 178 meters high. So I'll just scale around the 0 point, and I'll just type in 0.01. Wait, 0. Yeah, 0.01. That means 100 times smaller. So we're back in centimeters. Right, so now everything is in correct scale. Okay. So we have that done. Let's hide figure 2 and figure 1 and start playing around with the composition. So for now, I will just create a new layer, and I'll call this environment. Yeah. Hide the tower so that it's not in the way. And let me create a plane, actually, for the tower. I'll just select it and create a bounding box. And hide the tower for now, just so that I can use this bounding box as a reference on where I'm going to place it. So our focus, that's not it. Where is it? Photoshop. Our focus point is the figure right here, right? And the tower is kind of in the background. So I will just move this figure somewhere here, something like that. Rotate -90, like that. Zoom into her. Yeah, the tower will need to be much further, or we could change the lens length to something like 30. Yeah, seems to be okay. So that's step one. Step two is just creating the landscape. So to create the landscape, I'll just draw out a rectangle. Let's say, how big of a landscape? Come on, how big of a landscape will we need? So here, there's no landscape, only here, and it's hilly and so on. Okay, so let's do it this way. So I will just create a rectangle like so. Planar surface, create a surface through it, rebuild surface. Let's go, yeah, 10 by 10 is okay. Go back to perspective, zoom selected, zoom into the girl, and let's just see. Okay, somewhere here, something like that. F10 to get the control points, and now I will work in top and right front view, maybe front view, to move the points up, and I will be checking it in perspective view to see if, you know, if I'm not messing it up too much. By now I'll also move the tower, well, not the tower, but the block of the tower to something like this. Okay, and let me lock it so that I don't accidentally move it up. So back to control points. Again, it's F10 if you want to choose them. Let me rebuild again, and this time use 5 by 5 so that I have better control over the overall surface. And let's see. So if I move these points up, and this point, this corner point down, this one down as well, get something like this, and maybe these guys can be moved. Well, let me select it here. Maybe these can be moved slightly out, so we get that hill, and this point it's moved here. The center ones are a bit lower, like that, and the corner points here, do they go up? Oh. Let me just close. Yes, they do go up a little bit. So I'll just move them up just a tiny bit like so, and maybe move this point down like that, this point up by a bit. Okay, so we have something like this going on. Then I'll rebuild it again. Now I'll just increase the resolution 10 by 10, repeat. This time I will be choosing these 2 points and moving them up even more. Maybe this one can go down. So there's a bump in the landscape. What else? Okay, wrong bump. So that's the bump, that's a valley. And let's say this guy is also a bump, something like this. Let me move it a little bit to the side like so. Do we have a point here? Yes, we should have a point. Yeah, we do. Move that slightly to the side. So it's basically just, you know, making composition work. So we have something going up here. The tower is a bit awkward. Something like that. Let me unlock and then just move the tower somewhere like so, and also rotate 45 degrees. No, less, minus 15 degrees. Minus 5. Yeah, that seems okay. So now it's kind of unbalanced. So let me actually take the landscape and move the whole landscape slightly to the left. Something like this. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I don't want it to be over dramatic. I mean, I don't want the landscape to be over dramatic, right? So we have the tower going on here, and maybe it can be just tiny bit closer so that we only have the gap. Okay, now it's time to move the actual tower into correct position. So I'll just choose the tower, select it, move it. You don't need to be very accurate about it. Come on. Jesus Christ, that's one heavy geometry. Where's my coffee? Oh crap, I ran out of coffee as well. Okay. So wait, we did 45, then minus 15, and then minus 5 again. 25. Just rotate, man. Come on. It's not that hard. Just rotate. Yikes. Okay. So that's done. Then I can delete my bounding box. Check out how it looks like here. All right, the tower is too low. Let me just. Oh, cool. Now I need to move it up a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Yeah, something like that. And now we wait again, I guess. So yeah, at this point, I would probably be using my better laptop for this, because this is way too heavy to work with this one. But this is the, you know, the composition that we get. This is good enough for us to start working with. Okay, so now I will Control A, select all, hide, and I'll just make a sphere. Or actually, sorry, for perspective view, the one that we, you know, let me unhide it. This perspective view, I want to save it as my camera. So I'll just type in named view. Oh, I already have 2 cameras here. What the heck? No, I don't need those. Delete, and save this as camera 1. Save that. Okay, now that's good. Now I can just select everything and hide. Whew, setting up done. So now I can just switch back to perspective view, and every time when I want to lock into that camera, I can. So in top view, I will just create a sphere anywhere, something like that. ZSA to zoom select selected in all viewports, and in perspective I'll start testing out my shader for the camera. So this is the moment where we start creating shaders. Carbon, what the heck? Purge. Let's clean it up. I can't. Oh right, that's the helmet. Let me just delete. That's off. All of those are off. Document send is off. Okay, good. Now we have just a, you know, empty, clean file. Vray file. Okay. Let's test render this out. First, I will just make sure, oh yeah, I don't want it to be that big. So I'll just say widescreen and give me 480 height, and just do a render. Very dark. The reason why I'm not doing interactive render is because I'm, again, slow computer recording at the same time as modeling and rendering. Something will break if I try to do interactive render, so we'll need to stick with the default, like typical progressive render. Okay, so it's too dark. Let's see, camera settings, exposure value 8, all of that is good. Can we just, I'll just revert to original render settings and render again. There we go. Okay, so this is what you would probably, you know, just see in a default fresh renderer. So now let's see here. That's good. Environment, it's using Rhino's default HDRI map. So I don't need that one. I will just go back here, back to settings, and I'll just remove it altogether, because we are trying to make a cell shader, well, not a cell shader, but a cell shading look, so that will not help us at all. Okay, so background is black, and now everything should be black if I try to render it out. Yep. No lights, right? So of course everything is black. Let's create a light source. Let me just create a new layer, call it lights. And here you have a bunch of different options for a light source. In this case, we can't use a rectangular light or sphere light, because all of these produce soft shadows. You can use sun or directional light tool. I will use directional light just because it's so much easier for me to control it. So we have something like this. Let me render it out, see how it looks like. Yeah, already looks like a pretty cell shady thing, right? Black and white. Okay, let me just quickly move this up so that we have some sort of an angle for the light. Render it again. Okay, that's good. And now there is gonna be a problem. If I were to say, there's also a box, right? Right here. Somewhere here. There's also a box. Let me make it bigger. And I render it. There are bumps. Like, ooh, this is very intense. But that's fine. But you can see that the light bleeds into the shadow, and this is how it naturally happens. So the light is bleeding into the shadow, and we don't get that cell look anymore. So I need to remove one thing, and that's global illumination. I will be removing that altogether, right? So global illumination off, try again. Nice. So that works pretty well. Let's see what else we can do with it. Because by now we're just playing around with light, right? So I will select the sphere, Vray asset editor, generic material, and I'll just slap on a material to the sphere. Render again. Boo. It creates this gradient, right? Because it's not purely white sphere anymore. It's grayish, which is kind of okay for us at this point. I will be creating one more material, which is where is it? Toon material, right here, which will give me an outline around my object, right? So toon material asks you for base material, and it just adds line work on top of it. So I'll just go for my generic. Let me call this base cell, whatever. And this one is, yeah, toon, or toon cell, something like this. Apply to selection, render it out. And shit, it got eaten up immediately by the over bright light. I assume if I were to go to exposure tab here and say that, what the, reset, and say that highlight burn should be less, or contrast should be less. That's strange. So we're missing the let me turn off exposure for now. We're missing the line work, right? So for now I'll just increase the line width to something like 2, and I'll multiply the silhouette by 1.5. So the outer boundary is going to be thicker, 150%. Render again. And now it's there, right? So now you can see it. All right, so that works. There are a few more things that I want to fix. First of all, this is pure black. I don't want it to be pure black. And this is where we start arriving at problems. You know, there's no way for me to fix the pure black color here, except that if I, in my base cell material, if I also slap on one more layer on top of it, and you can do it here, right here, add layer, and I choose emissive, like that, and render it. So this one looks like this, right? That's fine, definitely fine for us. So right now it looks like that, but if I were to change the color, no, sorry, not the color, the transparency. If I were to change the transparency to something like this and render it again, now I can control the self shadow, you know, how dark the self shadow is, right? Which I think is really nice. Okay, so we have that going for us. We have the line work, we have the lighter shadow, darker shadow, highlights, and so on. Unfortunately, we can't control anything more with within Vray for Rhino, which kind of sucks. But in exposure rollout, which you can access through show corrections control here in the bottom left corner, and then exposure, I can change the exposure values, and also I can play around with the contrast, right? So I can increase the contrast or decrease it. So I do have a little bit of play here, but not too much, right? We'll see how this pans out. For now, I'll turn it off. Okay, enough with the sphere. That's boring. Let's actually move on to our actual geometry. So I'll show. I'll go to my C1. Let's go right here. And let's, where do we start? Tower or girl? Let's go for tower. So the tower in this shot is quite far away. So maybe I should start working with it on different. No, that's fine. Let's start working with it on this shot. So first thing first, I'll add the toon cell material to this, and I will choose the light source, the angle of the light source, because right now it's a bit awkward. It's right from the back, and here, where is it? Photoshop. I have it from the side, right? So it's going this way. Ooh, that's a nice arrow. Okay, so I want to fix that. Let me just choose this from the side. Something like that, perhaps. Let's see the angle of it. So the angle is not that great. I want it to be a bit higher up. Come on, just give me the point. I can do that in right view as well. Something like, oh shit. Something like that. Okay. So we have that working. Let's test. Yeah, let's test render. Why not? So compiling geometry is going to take a while. Okay, that's not that bad. There are a few things that I dislike. First of all, the lady is right in the floor, in the ground. So let me move her up. Just something like this, maybe even higher. Oh, that's too high. Something like that. Let me create a region here, render. Now she's slightly above, so let me just move her back by 0. How much is that? Like 2 centimeters? 0.2? Something like that. Render again. Perfect. Okay, so we have that working. But for now, I will hide the tower because that one seems to be working quite well. We will revisit it and then close-ups and so on. So we'll polish it. So for now, I'll just hide it, and let's work on the lady here. Right. So right now, this is how she looks like. If we were to slap on our toon cell shader on her, she would look like this, right? Which is kind of okay. Ooh, yeah, that's a bit weird. That's actually not that bad. All of those things will be fixed, I assume. Oh, let me close this. All of those things will be fixed once we increase the resolution, but for now that's kind of okay. The thing is that stylistically speaking, this is a bit, kind of dull. So I want to create some sort of a surface, like some sort of a irregularity for the surfaces and so on. And actually, I will begin doing that on the landscape. So for the landscape, I will be doing a different thing. First of all, I'll make a copy of my base cell material, duplicate, and I'll call this base landscape, and I'll make a copy of my toon cell material, duplicate, and I'll call this toon cell landscape. Okay, we have that going on, and I'll just slap on the toon cell landscape material here. Okay, we have something like that going on. Perfect, that's good. So now for the landscape, there is one thing that I want to not change but add, and it's rather an important one. Irregularities, right? Because right now it's too clean. It's you know, too much of a just kind of snow, you know, white stuff. So I'll slap on a displacement map for it, and hopefully the toon shader will shade that displacement of my landscape. So let's do that. First of all, I will be using Jsplacement portable version. This is a free program that you can use. You can just download it if you sure, install. So you can just download it and use it for free. And what it does, it just generates displacement maps and different patterns for you. Really useful stuff, really nice. So that's how the program looks like. You click on the top left corner and choose what kind of a displacement type you want. Classic would look like, bam, something like this. And dot grid would look something more like this, and so on. So you can choose different displacement types. For this surface, I will use classic, and of course you can change different variations of it, but we don't have time. So and this is not a tutorial about this program, so instead I'll just save color. Let me desktop, YouTube tutorial. I'll just call this landscape displace. Save. And then if I check it out, YouTube tutorial landscape displace, it's black. Crap. Okay, so then let's save height instead, I guess, which is counterintuitive, but instead of save color, I just use save height. I'm not a professional at this program at all. Okay, fine. We have this, right? So the way displacement works is the white stuff is going to be bumped upwards, the black stuff is going to be pushed downwards in the landscape, right? Which is really nice for us. So let's jump into here, and where we have base cell landscape, I will just for now I'll just use it as a color just to check the tiling of it. So I will use bitmap color and choose landscape displace. Why don't you work? Oh crap, I'm using it as my emissive color. Actually, that's fine. That will work as well. Vray for Rhino was unable to acquire. I literally just rendered. What do you mean? Okay, cool. So it doesn't care, it just continues rendering. Yeah, never mind, we don't see anything. So instead of doing that, I will clear and I will go to my Vray BRDF material layer. So instead of emissive, and just apply it here to the diffuse. right click, right click. Oh my god, right, okay, fine. Bitmap, choose, close, render. Why don't you render? Is it the light that's burning out all of my stuff? Let me just double check. Directional light. Right now I'm turning off the light. No, it's not. Did I not? Oh my god, did I not? Tunesel landscape. Yeah. So I applied Tunesel landscape to the landscape. This material right here, but the base material that it's using, it's not using the base cell landscape, but just a regular base cell material. So it's, of course, it's not showing up. We do this base cell landscape, and now it will work. Or not, I guess. Why doesn't it freaking work? Is it the light? Is it because it doesn't have the light and we're just rendering out as if it was just purely emissive? This tutorial is going to become troubleshooting tutorial. There we go. Okay, so now it's rendering. Basically, if you have direct light turned off, then it's just going to render the emissive one and it won't show you the landscape map. So you can see that here it's way too big, right? So we need to change this. I can change it by just going to my materials, base cell landscape, and where I have diffuse, I just right click on it, wrap, I choose wrap in, and then I will choose triplanar mapping. So this little guy is really convenient because here I can choose the size of my triplanar map, and actually let's do 1/8. It's gonna be faster. And for the size, I will just use something in meters. So let's say it repeats every 100 meters, right? So every 100 meters. And that's all we need to do. I render again. Still way too big, but let me check with exposure controls. Let me reset them and highlight burn, turn that one all the way down so that nothing gets burned. Yeah, this is still way too big. So back here in triplanar map, I'll say around 5 times smaller, so 20. Render again. Yep, this seems to be okay, kind of. Yeah, that's actually good enough. Of course, you could play around with this forever, but we don't have time. I want to speed things up a bit. So we have our map and it's being tiled every 20 meters. You can do that with UVW, of course, mapping, but I just choose this one. Okay. At least for me it's faster. So now we'll use it as displacement. So I will right click on in my diffuse channel, I'll right click on the map and cut, choose cut, Then I will go to displacement here in the bottom, enable, and I will paste as instance, or paste as copy. Yeah, paste as copy, like that. And this is the amount of displacement in meters, right? So that's gonna be a lot. So let's say, actually the displacement should be like 10 centimeters. Let's try that. Render. Okay. Something's off with the displacement map, right? So I will cut the map here, turn on the bump map, paste as copy. For the I'll be using bump instead of displace. Maybe that's gonna be helpful. We'll see. Oh yes, nice. Okay, so now it works. So we have a bunch of lines, right? Because it bumps, and the tone material just adds the line work here. So we have some information going on there. That's good, but I want to also, I'll just make a copy of it, and where I have my diffuse color, I'll just paste it as an instance here as well. Just to get a little bit of that variation. Yeah, seems to be good. Okay, so we have that going on. That's our landscape. For the lady here, the helmet is fine. It has a bunch of lines and so on. The lady though, what if we actually use the same material on her? Doing some landscape, apply. Of course, we need to make it more dense, so I'll just apply box map like that, and let's just choose 10 centimeters, no, more, 20 centimeters, so 0 0.2. Whoop, that's not 0 0.2, 0 0.2, 0 0.2, 0 0.2. Render. Yeah, that seems to do the trick. But for the landscape and the lady, you can see here that the the shadows, they eat up the texture. That's because of the emissive map. So I will go back into my I'll go back to my materials, and I'll make sure that the emissive map doesn't eat the shadow, the details there. And I can do that simply by where I have the diffuse color, I'll just make a copy again and paste it as my emissive color, right? Or maybe I could just even paste it as, yeah, let me move it as transparency and clear that. So in some places the emissive color is going to overwhelm the shadow, in other cases it's not. Let's see how that will look. That is not good. That is not good at all. So let's go back to just saying that it's a color, maybe. Cut. So transparency is off, color is on. Yeah, that seems to be okay. Now it's the time, the moment where I increase the resolution. So to do that, let's go to render output and say 1920, right? So we're rendering it out as almost 4K. And I will just use a region render just to render out this part here. As you can see, the fingers are fixed now and everything seems to be okay, except that the tiling is a little bit too dense. So let me make it 0.5, like half a meter for tiling of the lady. 0.5. Render. Yeah, I think that looks cool. For the landscape, I don't like that black rectangle here, so I'll just offset it by 0.1. That should immediately fix it. There we go. That's much better. Okay, we have this working. Now it's time to check out our main, protagonist, I guess, of this scene, which is the tower. Show selected. Tower. Yes. The tower is gonna be somewhere here, I assume. Render. Yeah, I missed the mark with this, but at least now we can see what's missing here. So there's not enough lines, right? Basically, there's just not enough lines for the tower. Some of them are okay. Some of them need to be fixed. So I'll do that by going into materials, and that's my base cell material. No, sorry, my toon cell material, not the landscape, but the one that I use for the tower. And I'll change this to the normal threshold. I'll increase it, I think 0.95, something like this. Render. Okay, now you can see much more lines here. That seems to be a-okay. And now this is the time when we kind of give it a render, like render out a single image. Sorry, render out the whole image and just see how it looks. Okay, there is one thing that I kind of dislike about this is that I don't see the shadow of the tower hitting the landscape, because here I purposely like drew the shadowy bit here. So we need to fix that. Let's think. So it's the light source, huh? Let's do it like that. Oh, right, of course I don't see the shadow because the light source is right like 90 degrees perpendicular to our view. So let's just move it like so. And hopefully this will fix it. Fine. I'll do it the correct way. Bounding box. Hide the tower so that it renders faster. So instead of a tower, we use the bounding box. And here I will go to settings. In the bottom, I'll just choose material override so that we don't use any materials, and I'll choose smaller frame size here and do a real-time render. Okay, what I ended up doing is creating a second light source just to light it from the back a little bit, and the second light source is going to be quite weak, just like 10 units rather than 100. Oh yeah, I forgot, shadow radius of the lights needs to be 0. As sharp of a shadow as possible. Back here, delete the bounding box, show selected, show the tower, like that. Increase the size to 1920. Override color, turn that one off. And just render it out. Okay, this starts seeming quite good. At least for me, I kind of like it. I will be changing a few things though. So first of all, where I have my exposure, I will play around with this until I will get more of a cell shaded look. I'll use the character or the helmet as a reference, right? Because of the soft shapes. So let's see. If contrast is turned off like that, it's gonna do this. If I amp up the contrast, it's gonna do something like that, which is good. And I can control the highlight burn here, so that is almost a sharp edge. That seems okay. We do lose a little bit here, and the shadow becomes quite dull here. Let's see. Is that the yeah, that's the highlight burn. Okay. What if we change the exposure to something lower? Yeah, something like that. Highlight burn, make it bigger. Now let's go to perhaps levels. No, to the curve, and see what happens if we lift the black a little bit. Push down the white, or do we need to push down? Maybe we don't. I will leave the white as it is. So we just move the black up just a tiny bit, so that you get this kind of a ink look. Maybe that's a bit of an overkill here. So finicky. And then I'll just play around with the handles to see what works. Maybe something like that, and then here. something like that, and then black goes down a bit. Okay, we end up having this kind of a render. Of course, right now it's like low quality and so on, but at least now we have all of the settings. So let me render this out real quick and talk about it. So I'll speed it up, right? So let me go and make another cup of coffee while this renders out. Never mind, I'm back. Forgot that we do need more towers. I just want to see if it's gonna crash or not. If it's not gonna crash, that means, you know, it would have been a missed opportunity. So I will just save the file real quick. So the render has finished, and I stopped it a little bit before it was finished, just to speed things up a bit. So we have a pretty decent quality picture here. Everything seems to be okay. There's still some soft shadows here and there that I don't like. But other than that, this seems to be a bit, you know, closer to how a cell shaded picture would actually look like. So the next step is in Photoshop. Well, first of all, save your stuff. So save your image, JPEG, R1, save it. And also, not just this image, but also the alpha channel of it. We'll need that as well. Save JPEG as well, R1A for alpha. Then in Photoshop, I will just simply open these two bad boys up. Like that, like that. Copy in the alpha into here, and I will be using alpha as the alpha channel as to play around with the background of this image. So how do we do that? Let's remove all of the white stuff from the alpha channel. Not even a channel, just straight up alpha layer. I will go to select color range, and I'll just select the area which is white, and then play around with the fuzziness. 0 maybe? More? Something like that. Maybe less. 12. To select everything. Seems to be almost okay. Hit delete. And select. Huh. Oh, that's not good. Back here. We could refine the edge, but let me just think for a bit. Okay, and select again, color range, select the white, and this time no fuzziness. That goes inwards. So if I select inverse, that's gonna do that, and I can create a new layer where I still have this selection done. So the inverse selection, well, I still have that done. And in that new layer, I can just do red. Let's just see how it looks like. Okay, so the map seems to be okay. So I'll undo the red. And while I still have this selection, this is very important to have. While I still have the selection, I can just take a brush, decrease the, well, not decrease the size, but yeah, something like this, full on hardness, make it white. And now let's play around with the settings of the brush. So where do I have it? So it's that button right there. So I can change the spacing of it like this, and there should be random spacing. Am I blind? Why can't I see? Oh, scattering. Yeah, scattering, scatter, like 400 more, 1000. Yeah, that's fine. So that's the scatter. Is it possible to, yeah, there we go. In shape dynamics, there's size jitter. I will do 100%. That's good. Let's scatter a bit more. Oh, that's already. Okay, that's good. So something like this. So shape dynamics, full on size jitter, scattering, full on scatter. What happens in both axes? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Count 3. Actually, we can do count jitter 100%. Yeah, that's good as well. So count 3, count jitter 100%, and then smoothing, we don't really care. That's whatever. And then actually I would use my, let's make it a bit bigger though. I would use my tablet for this, but right now I don't have it connected, so I'll just do it by hand. YOLO. That's bad. That's not that bad, but it's a bit too big. Less. It's good. Good. Huh. The density is a bit off. Let's see. Where are the settings? What happens if we have an insane count? Oh, okay. So if count is 1, yeah, sorry. So count should be 1. Let's just do it this way, like that, and there, and maybe some bigger stuff going on here. So we have that. Maybe some stuff going on here, some going on here. Okay, that is good. And now I will turn off all of the shape dynamics, and back to presets. I'll reduce the spacing to like 10% or something like that. Yeah, that's good. And I'll just increase the size of it and make some sort of a focal point. So we will have this axis right here. We'll have this this girl right here. Bonk. Yeah, something like that. Deselect once you're done, and then let's see. I will decrease the opacity just a tiny bit, something like that. I will take my eraser tool and just kind of 100% opacity. I'll just remove some stars or whatever have you here that I think are kind of in the way. So that, then oops, and then that gets removed. That is fine. Okay. Oh, and that one. Okay. So we have something like this. Here, back to our these two towers, just like I showed you before. I will grab a brush, Alt, select the color, select an area around the towers which are in the back. Create a new layer in between the stars and the main one, and I'll just fill that layer with the color of the background like this. So now the two towers are gone, but now I can just simply change the opacity of it, and by changing it I can push them back. Yeah, I think that is good. And here new layer, white, smaller. Can we do this? Yeah, sure, why not? Let's do that, and then opacity of this one gets turned down even more. So I want the stars to be in the back, right? So I turn them more down, and this one something like that. Okay. I don't like it. I'll remove this one and just take a brush. What the? Whoa, whoops. I'm drawing on top of my towers. Instead of that, I'll use the eraser tool. That was my bad. Something like this, something like that. This needs to be more in the focus, like that. Helmet needs to be more in the focus. And the stars are too that, break that, and that's good. And one more, or rather one last. Boom. And you can, as you can see, I would sit here and just play with it forever. Scattering, size jitter, scattering, full on, both axes. Nope. Why is it not working? Or is it working? No, it's not. Oh, that's because it's a freaking eraser. Brush. Oh no. Size jitter like that. And brush tip spacing 100%. Yeah, that's good. So now back here, smaller. So into something like this for the smallest ones. And then take the eraser tool. Just get rid of the... Why is it not? Oh, the eraser is scattering as well. So I'll turn that one off. What else is bad? Can I just have a default brush, please? There we go. So we remove the crap from here and here. Okay. This one gets turned down as well. Actually, these can be turned up. Okay, I stopped playing now. So that's how you do a toon render, right? In Vray for Rhino, and we will be doing. I will be doing 2 more renders. So I'll speed through the process. I will not be commenting. You'll be enjoying the music as you'll watch the sped up version of me work. The next video is gonna come out pretty soon, and it's again going to be Arnold for 3ds Max, which is, by the way, free for students. Both 3ds Max and Arnold render are free for student use, so if you want to follow through, you can download it on your computers and use it there. What else? Yeah, have fun playing with these forms, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.